All right. All right. What a wonderful thing. So many things to do. So much is coming out. So much learning. So much beauty. I've been telling you since we started this. At this point, I don't even remember how many weeks ago it was, but quite a few. Uh, that we were going to get to seeing some of Jesus stuff, and we are going to get there tonight. We're moving into that section. It's kind of been separated and reserved specifically for this one. Uh, but there was a thing that came up, and apparently 2 pages stuck together last Wednesday, and there's some pieces that are really profound that we missed, and I want to go back. So we're going to go back. If you're following with us, we're going to go back about 3 paragraphs. So it'll take me 5 minutes or so, but I want to bring that up, and then we'll start into chapter 17, where we begin kind of the journey into Yeshua. And it's man, there's already so much more coming out than anybody has a clue of. So another side teaching piece that I want to share with some of you guys, what we haven't understood. I showed y'all in the Nag Hammadi where it is said of Adam and Eve that Adam, became divided and death came when they took the rib from him. That's maybe really difficult for some of you to understand or even put stock in, but it is in fact the truth. And we find now in the New Age movement, all over the place, there is this thing that is being preached, and it's called feminism. And it is directly tied to the Nag Hammadi. So for those of you who don't know any of this, then you're just confused on every level. For those of you who've been good students and listening and paying attention, maybe you already begin to see that what I've been telling people, and I've even told New Agers this, and it just boggled their mind, that unfortunately what most people are getting out of the New Age movement is only half of the equation. And they only get half of the equation because all they know is the parts that tie to that half that they are. But they don't understand all the ancient wisdom and knowledge that was hidden from humanity for over 2,000 years, friends. And so my interest is to find what was it pre-Christianity, and then we can begin to learn and start to have dialogue, and that's what's going on. And there are many things that many people are really going to struggle with, and yet the beauty and the peace is as ancient as anything that exists. And so we want to pick up here for you. If you have the book, my book is appears to be somewhat different than y'all's documents. So if you from time to time hear something worded a little different or whatever, when they do PDFs, sometimes that happens. And so Katie had been asked a question, do the Essenes know this is coming? And Katie answers, and just so if you're confused, we were Saudi, and now we're Katie. Well, Katie, because Katie's vocal cords are what are being used to be channeled, to channel Saudi through. In this channeling concept, I have some pieces that I want to share with you, and it's tied to chapter 17, which we're going to. I am busted. There is so much amazing stuff that Source is sending to me, and confirmation and love he's given to me on 1,000 different levels. And so I really need us to understand that this is the charge, the march is moving on, and it's up to every one of us to choose to join the line or to choose to opt out. Unfortunately, I'm horribly saddened because there's going to be so many people that opt out of the greatest thing that's ever happened to humanity. It's what all the ancients were talking about through all of this time. And I meet people and they're still hung up on the Bible, still trying to make the prophecies the way that the Christians told them the prophecy was come to pass. And I hate to tell you, friend, it ain't ever going to happen, because that never was the intention. Those prophecies are interpreted to you through a corrupt mindset called Christianity. I don't hate Christians. I'm not against Christians. Many of the pieces of Christianity came out of the early belief system, but then they corrupted it, because if you knew who you really were, you would never be deceived again. And that's what must be hidden at all cost. And so she says, this happened when the scrolls were found in many caves, literally unearthed, as he said they would be. But what about the other important, see it, trying to do it again. Those 2 pages are just stuck. The things that have not been found. And so if you take that and you take that with a little bit of looseness, we are finding things that we have never found. That's what this whole concept is about, is finding who you are. And so the mysterious objects in the library, the model, the stargazers, and the crystal. And if I know that many of you probably don't give 2 ounces of credence to it. And you know what? You're right. It wouldn't do you any good. But for those people who do have belief, remember, nothing, even in the Bible, nothing comes to anyone except they believe. And the Bible says you will get nothing from spirit source if you do not believe. I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's one of those real hard messages that comes through to us as humanity. A naysayer to me that says, I don't believe, is the largest curse you can put on yourself. And so if you want to curse yourself, continue to be an unbeliever. Because everything that Source is trying to show us is unbelievable to the Christian mind. Because you have a different mind. It's been polluted and you don't even have a consciousness of it. And so we need to get a hold of that, and we really need to take the opportunity to learn and to fill ourselves full. I would give it all to you if I could, but alas, that's not what Source wants me. He wants me to seed you, and it's up to you to prove whether you believe him or don't. If you don't, Source is okay with it. I mean, Source doesn't sit in the heavenlies and he cries because you chose not to believe him. I know that may sound a little harsh, but it is the truth. And so he says, the things that have not been found, the mysterious objects in the library, the model, the stargazers, and the crystal. He said it was very possible that the model would be taken away and hidden, but he was not certain. And I thought if anyone ever found it, they would not know the purpose of it anyways. It would only appear to be rods and bronze balls. It must have been a soul-searching decision to take the model apart, because they knew in so doing no one would know how to start it again. But it was probably better to hide it than to have it fall in the hands of the Romans. This was one of the things that had been sworn to protect since the Kalu gave it to them eons ago. All of these decisions must have been very difficult, for they knew they were coming to the end of an era, the closing of a door, and the only solution they could think of was to hide the valuables in the hope that maybe somewhere, sometime, someone would find them and be able to understand what had been so precious to them. They must have known they were taking the chance that time the elements and marauders would take their toll. If you remember, what's being talked about is the model of the universe that existed before there was a Hubble telescope. I've asked this recently. They have knowledge up to 20,000 years ago of stars that we have just recently known about. How could that happen unless they had seen them? They had no telescopes, but they have better knowledge than we have scientifically in this computer Hubble telescope age in which we live in. And if you can't see that you're part of the deception, if you can't grasp the reality that there has been something hidden from us. Because as I told a sister today, I said, well, sister, it's kind of like when you kill an animal. Before the meat gets good, you have to bleed the animal. And we have been so steeped and hidden in the lie of Christianity, many of you spiritually need to cut your wrist and let the Christian run out of you. It's poisoning you. And you will never be able to go forward with Source. You will always be under the delusion as long as you continue to doubt the creator of the universe, to doubt the Messiah you say that came to save you by dying for you so that you could be a heathen and still go to heaven. I'm sorrowful. I told you I'm full tonight. There's a million things that are going on in this world, and people just seem to harden their hearts harder and harder and harder and harder. Look for any little thing that will make them feel like they're someone instead of finding out that they really are someone. Hello. Smile if you're spiritual. So they were concerned that the Romans, who also, as I would to say it, were also the head of the Roman imperial cult, which we call now the Roman Christianity. It's the same evil. They just changed the name on it. Maybe cult was a bad thing back then, but they called their whole religious system a cult. And you're part of it if you're part of that nonsense. Another thing you might need to remember, Yeshua walked on this earth around 70 AD, 64 AD, somewhere in that neighborhood, and Christianity was not even begun until Constantine in the year 312. So any scholar who tells you that all of these writings are too far away from Jesus just wiped out all of Christianity for you, because it was 300 years after he was gone. He wasn't dead, but after he was gone 300 years, then Christianity comes and has firsthand knowledge. And you're still buying that bunk. I try to share the truth, historical. My grandkids know these things because we taught them. Christianity did not exist, friend, until the year 312. Yeshua died in 64. Do the math for yourself about who in the Christianity ever saw him in the first place. None of them. And how you know which John wrote John and didn't write John is a marvel mystery to me. I digress. I'll get some of my energy out. But here's the beautiful thing, friends. The purpose of all of this is to show you that there is more. Source is bleeding to you. He's speaking to you. The Christ came to speak to you tonight. These truths are truths that if you can't grasp them, it's going to hinder you massively in the spiritual journey. And I don't believe that our Creator wants us to be hindered. In fact, I believe he's been putting up with mankind's stupidity for thousands of years. But this is not the time that has been in thousands of years ago. There's many channelings that came through men called prophets, and I'll get on that because there's some things that sources I believe is showing me that we have a really screwed up picture because, once again, of the false doctrine and the interpretations that have been given to us. And so, all of these decisions must have been very difficult for them to tear this model apart. It was perfect. It was perfect in every way. There's no way that it could have came except from star people. And so Dolores says, when I asked about the crystal, and I think I kind of was starting off in a direction, Moses' stick had a crystal on it. I can show you thousands of times historically where the crystal was the root that power came through. Okay, when Moses held that stick up at the Red River, do you know, dear one, where the energy flowed from? That crystal. And then they can't feel anything when they put on my jewelry. And so when I asked about the crystal, Katie's body suddenly jerked uncontrollably. What makes a person jerk uncontrollably? Usually energy. I do not understand this physical reaction, but he said, it is gone. It has been moved. It is not in the area. I was placed on another source of light. All totally metaphysical. I do not think at the time to ask him what he meant by that, but now I wonder if it was possible possibly taken to another planet. All of us have come at some point from another planet to this planet. And I asked why the question had bothered him, and he paused as though he was listening to someone, and he was. So Katie says, they say it is not time for that. Now dig this. This is back 20 years ago, and the spirits were channeling, and if you would spend a little bit of time and go research Dolores Cannon's life and the things that came out, not just this story, but the other 24,000 stories that came out to her, everything from beings from other planets that were channeled, that came through because that was where this person lived. I talked to a person who does this hypnotic, was trained by Dolores, and she lately has been having people from Draconia coming through, people that have come in and had past life regression. They're actually remembering the star from which they came to the earth. All of us came from a star somewhere else. Maybe it seems too far-fetched for your mind to grab a hold of. For those people who are hungry for truth, it won't be far-fetched. The Bible talks a lot about flying vehicles. And I'm going to show you through the prophecy that you have no picture of what a true prophet even is. If you were, you would already know. And so Dolores says, well, I would like to make a guess. Do you think the Watchers might come and help take some things away? And Katie responds, or Saudi responds, it is possible. Yes, they would be one way these things would not be found again. If all of these things are gone, people in the future will never know how advanced the community really was, i.e., look how that manifested. See, I would dare say that there's probably not 1/100th of the people that will ever listen to me that will really get a hold of this concept. We're not from here, friends. None of us are. I found some other documentation of God talking to us before we come into the body. The Bible tells us that God knew you before you were in the womb. Do you know how? Because you're a eternal spirit. God's known you for hundreds of thousands of years. So, he says, yes, that would be one way these things would not be found again. If all of these things are gone, people in the future will never know how advanced the community really was, and that's true. But we are going to learn because we are in a time that Saudi never got to see. And so after the destruction of Qumran, will any of these people be left? Yes, they will go elsewhere. Some will survive with knowledge. Others will survive with only memories to be reawakened at the time of need. And so you might then withdraw from that the truth that the awakening that's happening on this earth right now, I know you guys may not understand this and you might not know anything about what I'm talking about, but this awakening that's going on in the earth is because this is the last-ditch effort before this earth is taken over again by the people who created us, the spirit beings, the astral movers, the aliens, if you would. They're really concerned about how we are destroying Mother Earth. And so I wonder if he meant the kind of memories we were now awakening with our experiment, and of course, exactly. I changed my questioning to see if I could find out anything about the mysterious Kalu. The Kalu were a branch of people who came and ruled this earth, friends. They brought knowledge to us of the star systems. They are those who think of, they are from that you would call in your time as Atlantis. We know a channeler, Edgar Casey, spoke very, very clearly about the Atlanteans and what happened in Atlantis and what happened to the people and that the knowledge was going to return and all of those things. We like to call them prophecies because we're not very awakened yet. But none of the things that you call prophets or prophecy are prophets or prophecy in the definition Christianity gives them. Every person that you have ever met that functions in a prophetic utterance is nothing but a channeler speaking from another place. I do it constantly. You don't even know it. I speak words that my brain has no knowledge of, and they're proven out to be true. It's all over this that we're watching. Elijah was nothing but a channeler. Cryon is nothing but a channeler. They're being vessels of someone, God's source, speaking through them to humanity at whatever level. Maybe my level isn't where Elijah's was yet. Maybe mine will end up being bigger than Elijah's was. That's not the point. The point is that if Source speaking through you, Source is going to do exactly what Source wants to do. He's just looking for people who will be willing to let him flow through them. That's what prophecy is. So once again, they screwed us up because they gave us this whole concept of prophecy. They could have just simply said the channel Elijah, the channel Samuel. Samuel manifested every manifestation of a medium. He did that while he lived on this earth. Moses did the same thing. Moses was a psychic medium who was also a shaman, a witch doctor. And so, part of this name difference is when people speak of what is called Atlantis, they do not realize that instead of just being one, that there were many governments, many countries on that continent. The Kalu were not made up of all of the people, but were simply a part of that. Do you know what happened to them? Katie answers, there are still some alive on earth. They are guardians of some of the secrets that are now being protected. They guard many things. Knowledge of them shall resurface. Why do you think that there are Pleiadians who were also part of Atlantis? Why do you think Pleiadians, if you don't know anything about it, then you should check. Pleiadians are speaking, channeling through people at an unprecedented rate. Pleiadians are blue people that love us very much. They are part of what we came from. If you could, there's a picture of it that has the Pleiadians as being the true creators of mankind, at least Homo sapiens. And they are speaking through many people in this very day because we're coming close to a place of no return. And so there are some alive on earth. They are the guardians of some of the secrets that are being protected. They guard many things. Knowledge of them shall resurface. And so here we go. What happened to their country? Great destruction occurred because they did not follow the laws of nature. But those who are wise in the ways knew that it would come about and sought to have knowledge so that the spark that was mankind would not be snuffed out. And whether you know it or not, the counterforces to the enlightened and awakened ones are the ones who are so desperate to kill every human that they can. Whether you know it, what they just said about the spark of humanity is exactly what they desire to cause to cease, and they desire to do that by killing the spark in infant form. That's called abortion. You don't know that it's as spiritual. It's one of the most significant spiritual traits that those that are not on the light side use to destroy mankind. And so he says they are still alive on earth. They are guardians of some of the secrets that are being protected. They guard many things. Knowledge of them will resurface. What happened to their country? Great destruction occurred because they did not follow the laws of nature, but those who are wise in the ways knew that it would come about and sought to save knowledge so that the spark that was mankind. That's that spark. That's that little grain of a torch on a piece of metal or a grinder on a piece of metal, which is you. That's why we're all the same, because that piece of metal happens to be our creator source. And we're all part of him. So was the catastrophe a natural phenomena? She responds, it was a combination of nature crying out against what mankind had done to it. And so now, if you'll listen to that concept and listen to what I said to you earlier, that we are standing at the precipice. If humanity does not awaken now, the same thing that I'm reading to you will happen to humanity again, and we will yet again be thrown thousands of years backwards, and the next generations will have no knowledge of the things. All of this technology will cease to exist. You don't believe it could happen, but I promise you, if Source decides to destroy that technology and that knowledge, it won't be difficult for him to do it. I don't believe God is a destroyer of things, but man is on the verge of destroying himself. The purpose for their protection of us is to keep us from destroying ourselves. And it's very difficult because we have free will, which was granted to us by Source, and they can't directly get in and involve themselves because of our free will. If you want to destroy yourself, destroy yourself. There's nothing I can do. But I am going to tell you that if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to destroy yourself. And that's exactly what's going on. And so, was the catastrophe a natural phenomena? Katie says, it was a combination of nature crying against what mankind had done to it. What mankind is doing to nature. We are killing ourselves. They're browbeating Robert Kennedy right now for wanting to help us live healthier lives, at least as healthy as the people in Europe who don't get food that's full of chemicals. They won't even buy American foods, friends. The worst country in the world as far as poisoned food is the U.S. So while he was alive, Saudi talked as though there was a great explosion. There are partly an explosion. That was some of it. They misused the balance of nature. When you draw too much off of nature and do not replenish, you cause imbalance. Therefore, this is what occurred. Many were warned very early that this would happen, and they left the area. We have been warned that that's going to happen. Some left on airships, some left by the seas in hopes that at least some of them would survive. Dolores asked, was a crystal involved in any way with the final destruction? Other writers have suggested this, and I wanted to check it out. And Katie responds, yes, one of them. There were several. Some of it is to do with overload, misuse, mischanneling of power. You just watched a regime that was crushed by the mischanneling of power. It wasn't for our greater good, for the most benevolent outcome. It was for the least benevolent outcome and to control us as slaves. That was the end intent of the administration and regime that was just ousted by the American people. Why? Because of the awakening that's going on. Some left by the seas in hope that at least some of them might survive. What a horrible way to go. And so, there were several. Katie says, yes, one of them. There were several. Some of it to do with overload, misuse, mischanneling of power, so much it ultimately had to come back to where it began. For every action, there is a reaction. This is what they do not take into consideration. All the things that we're doing to this earth, eventually the earth is going to rebel against humans. Mother Earth is alive. It is a sustenance of us. And so, Saudi told me that there was a war and they used the airships. That's why you can understand that there is stuff that is fixing to be released, that there have been aliens as long as there's been anybody in America trying to find out if there are aliens. There have been aliens interacting with our government. It's not new. It's only new because you don't know anything about it. But it's been going on all along. And so Saudi told me that there was a war and they used the airships. Katie says, this was part of the ending, but the war that he spoke of has not been. This was a shock we were not expecting. It made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. When I was transcribing the tape about the war, it made me uneasy. The world conditions that Saudi was describing were too similar to our own. In fact, identical. It sounded so much like history repeating itself that it made me uncomfortable. This statement only reinforced that feeling. So Dolores asked Saudi, why did Saudi think it had already happened? And Katie says, confusion of information. We've certainly lived through 4 years of confusion of information by a government. He did say it comes down to them in bits and pieces, but he spoke of airships of old. There were airships of old, yes, but the war that he spoke of had not occurred. He was speaking on one hand of the warships of old, which did exist, and on the other hand of a prophecy that was made of one that would exist. So he's prophesying from 3,000 years ago that there's a time when the spaceships are coming back to the earth, friends. This is what you have when you have pieces of information. Those who think they are in a place to be able to know and make judgment upon, they would fit them askew. They fit their ideas, and therefore they must be correct. And I watch this constantly. People say, well, what you're teaching is not true. Why? Because I know. I ask them all the time. I say, have you done any studying about that which I speak? And the answer is always the same, no. So now you didn't know when you were a Christian that Christian was all BS, and now you know that this is all BS, but you haven't studied it, right? So you then must be God's ultimate channeler, right? God just tells you these things, and without any study, you know everything there is about the world, right? And so Dolores says, she says, I don't know if you're allowed to give us this information, but can you tell us when the war will occur? Katie says, the war that he spoke of, the prophecy, what many do not understand is it does not have to occur. This is a prophecy, and prophecies can be changed. So all those things that people are holding on to, like what the mark is, first off, that is a totally metaphoric picture and has no level of reality to it. But none of the prophecies in the Bible have to come to pass. Humans have the power to change prophecy. In fact, if you'll listen to any channelers, they will tell you this is what will happen if you continue down this road. It doesn't mean you have to continue down this road. Mankind has the ability to change. I say that to individuals all the time. All the things that have been happening to you are happening because of the road that you're walking down. If you don't like your life, change the road. It's that simple. So much of this I've been showing you guys every day. And so those who think that they are in a place to be able to know and make judgment upon, they would fit them askew. They fit their ideas, and therefore they must be correct. I don't know if you are allowed to give us this information, but can you tell us when this war will occur? The war that he spoke of, the prophecy, what many do not understand, as it does not have to occur. This is a prophecy, and prophecies can be changed if enough entities put the right energy into it. So it goes back completely back to us humans awakening and possessing the power to change. We are, friend, creators. We are creators by the way that we were created, totally with the intent of us creating. It's actually quite beautiful. If humanity ever finds out, the dark forces will have no hope. Maybe that's where the concept of the gates of hell will not prevail against the people that awaken. And so he said the watchers were some that might try to help. They are trying to help, but they cannot do the job of thousands of men with only a handful. It must come from the desire among the people to avert this catastrophe. They must be made aware of what could happen. They must know what would happen if the prophecies were allowed to be fulfilled, and it is presently presented correctly. They will at least nurture the seeds that will stop these horrible destructions. Why is it so difficult to get information from Saudi? If this is so important, he should cooperate more. Katie responds, each entity has the personality at that time. Therefore, the habits which have been ingrained in each of them is there. If someone told you, as you are, to do something that was against everything that you had been taught, you could not do this, which is the metaphor that I draw of we need to bleed out the Christian that is in us. We were so steeped in it, it flows literally like our blood through our veins. And the only way you're ever going to be able to grow and progress is when you begin to bleed that out. John said it at the baptism, I must decrease so that he, source, can increase. You must begin to decrease the lies to allow truth to fill you back. And so everyone has a personality. Your personality of who you are will be the same as you are when you cross the veil and your body falls down in a clump dead. Your spirit will still have the same basic demeanors that you have now. That is to say, in the heavenlies, I'm going to be speaking just like I am down here. God ain't going to change nothing about me. So let's jump on here because I know we've taken a little longer, but I really felt like you needed to see that. Chapter 17, the prophecies. It's relatively short, but this is the first chance we kind of get a glimpse to tie us into. We're moving into the realm where you're going to get to hear things, and this, what I read to you today, is going to validate everything that I've told you. Everything about Jesus that I told you is fixing to be validated in one chapter. Watch. It's not the whole story. We get more of the story, but this validates the basis. What was it like in Israel prior to the Roman imperial culthood coming to Palestine and then 300 years later making everyone a Christian? What was the world like before there was Christianity as you know it? There were many ways this regression material has been presented. Could have been presented. The incidents in the life of Christ, the life of Chrism, the life of the anointed, if you would. Messiah also means the anointed. So when you say Christ, you could have just as easily said Messiah, and it would have meant exactly the same thing. Were actually dispensed throughout the entire 3 months that we worked on this. So all through this time, she took the information and wrote the book how she felt best. All this time there's been Saudi talking about Jesus through all 3 months of these channelings that they did. 8 hours at a time, friend. When you say there was a little bit of time spent, typically most of these encounters with a quantum hypnotist therapist, those sessions are 8 hours long typically. For 8 hours, a person laid there and recanted their life 3,000 years ago. And they did that for how long did she say? 3 months? That's thousands of hours were spent to, she could probably wrote another 3 books off of what she got out of this. So, I could have left them in context and written the life of Saudi in chronological order. But I felt that the story of Jesus would have been diluted, lost among the tremendous wealth of information, material. I feel the life of Christ is too important for that. I believe it should stand alone, so I decided to combine all of that material into one section. And so, as I promised you, that's where we're heading into. The next weeks are going to boggle your mind about how bad you've been lied to. It could have been a book by itself, but then it would have lacked the basis that she's been giving us all of these weeks to get us here. I wanted to show what life was like in that desolate community and let the reader come to know the personality and wisdom of one of the Essenes. The things he believed, that they were functioning in physics, they were functioning in psychic abilities, they were doing telepathy, they were teletransporting, they knew of spaceships. All the stuff that you're hearing all over the internet that's manifesting is ancient knowledge. It's just new to us because you're just now hearing it, because the strength and the stronghold of Christianity is dying. And so she says it could have been a book by itself, but then it would have lacked the basis I have tried to present. I wanted to show what life was like in that desolate community and let the reader come to know the personality and wisdom of one of the Essenes. Thus, with the life of Jesus presented against this background, we can have a better idea of the environment in which he lived and studied, and to see some of the beliefs and knowledge he was exposed to during his most vulnerable year. Just so you know, Jesus was a metaphysical, mystical New Ager. We can have a better idea of the environment in which he lived and studied, and to see some of the beliefs and knowledge he was exposed to during his most vulnerable years. Only in this way can the missing parts of his life take on new emphasis. Only then can he be seen in a new light and hopefully be understood as the great human being that he was. Now, she said that, and for some of you who still have the God picture of Jesus, he was no more a God than you are a God. And we are all gods. It has already been shown in the earlier chapters that some of the Christian beliefs and rituals have come directly from the Essenes, notably the rite of baptism and the passing of the cup. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were translated, these two rituals were mentioned as being part of the Essenic daily life. Before there was any John the Baptist, friends, everybody over there that walked into the thing, there was a constant baptism. The significance of what it was is what we were deceived about. Many writers have commented on this after studying the translations. The similarity between these facts and what Katie recalled surprised me and was something I would never have suspected. In other words, the picture wasn't the Christian picture. I was amazed again by the accuracy she had shown in the reliving of Saudi's life. In his book, Ginsberg says, as the Essenes advanced through the different stages of development within the community, he or she came to the highest level they could attain. It was all about ascension. At that point, he became the temple of the Holy Spirit and could prophesy. Above all things, which, if I might tell you what really could be said there, and Dolores might not have understood this vernacular herself. As you reach to a place of ascension, you begin to know and bring forth things that come from other realms which you may not have had knowledge of. They came through you. Yeshua spoke as a channeler of the things of God. Did he have physical knowledge? Yes, absolutely. Do people who channel, are they very intelligent people? Almost across the board. So above all things, the gift of prophecy was regarded as the highest fruit of wisdom and piety. And if she changed that word to awakening, you would not know the difference. Then he advanced again to that stage in which he was enabled to perform miraculous cures. You saw Jesus. All of this is the picture of Jesus. But it's not the picture that was painted for you. and raised the dead. I think this passage leaves little doubt where Jesus learned these abilities. So was it something that he was the only one that did? No, there's a lot of history about supernatural things that were done by people before Jesus ever entered this earth. And when you begin to understand who Jesus really is, I believe there probably is a Jesus on the earth right now. Same spirit incarnated in a new body. I think this passage leaves little doubt where Jesus learned these abilities. It sounds to me as if these studies would come under the teachings of the master of mystery. We call it mysticism. We call it New Ageism. Saudi being taught foremost in the Torah, the law, had only minimal training in other fields, but Jesus had to learn everything from all of the different masters. The scrolls are still being studied today, but reports ceased immediately after the translation began. Why? What did they discover in the ancient writings that existed before Rome came to Palestine? They did not want the world to know. So once again, this is just another opportunity for you to see that they have been intentionally lying to you for 2,000 plus years. Why? What did they discover in the ancient writings that they did not want the world to know? Did they find the same things I have? Were they afraid the Christian work would be shocked by the findings that Christianity was not created with the ministry of Jesus? You think that it was, but it's not. It's two stories that are tied together. There's no truth in the connection. But was born out of the teachings of those apparently self-denying men and women who devoted their lives to loving all mankind and preserving knowledge for future generations. I am not the first to bring forth this idea. I was surprised that many other writers have come to the same conclusions after examining, and I'm going to add, the historical evidence that exists. One of the first was Dean Prideaux, who wrote the Old and New Testaments connected in the 1600s. He said that people in his day were inferring from the agreement between Christian religion and the documents of the Essenes that Christ and his followers were none other than a sect branched out from that of the Essenes. They knew this in the 1600s, friend. In 1863, Erich writes in his second edition of the third volume of his History of the Jews that Jesus simply appropriated to himself the essential features of Essenism and that primitive Christianity was nothing but an offshoot of the Essenes. So all the things Saudi talked about, the supernatural realm that they functioned in, the spirit realm that they functioned in, the energy realm that they functioned in, that was what he was. And again, from Ginsburg, 1864 book, I quote, "Those who style themselves the true evangelical Christians are very anxious to destroy every appearance of affinity between Essenism and Christianity, lest it should be said that the one gave rise to the other." The idea has been brought out more and more by the writers of the books on the Dead Sea Scrolls that the connection is very evident and very real. One author stated that most of the theologians know this, and listen to this, and please don't be offended. Only the lay people, and I'm going to add with that, the ones who don't do any historical study, only them are the ignorant. Scholars know that everything I'm teaching is true. Even if they might not agree with everything I'm teaching, they know that the path that I am exposing to people is the true path. They know that. The only people that don't know that is people that don't study that. If you studied, you would find what I've come to. In the December 1958 issue of the National Geographic, 1958 United States of America, friend, National Geographic, there was an in-depth article about the discovery and translation of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I quote, "Certain striking parallels exist between the beliefs and practices of the Essenes and those of the early Christians. Scholars of all faiths recognize these parallels. They are facts. But they don't want you to know that. Still, everything that is known about this wonderful group has been attained from the ancient writers in the excavations of Qumran. I hope that what I have found will open another door and allow a glimpse for the first time of their lifestyles and beliefs, a glimpse that is impossible to attain from the sifting and dating of remains and artifacts found in a silent ruin. I hope the scientists will use this book as a valuable tool to understand these mysterious people and Jesus' association with them. Maybe at last the whole world has been revealed and Jesus emerges even more wonderful and glorious than before. We can appreciate him as a living, breathing human being, just like you, as seen through the eyes of one of his loving teachers. So Dolores asked Saudi, you said that you spent time with the defining of the prophecies. Can you explain what you mean? Saudi responds, throughout the Torah there are many prophecies given, more than half of them upon his birth. They say the Messiah is coming, so the anointed one is coming, the one that has the chrism, if we're reading the Nag Hammadi. For us, the Messiah is coming for us. We must know the time and show that we may know him. It is for us to keep this knowledge so that in the future it may be shared with others who have gained understanding. We are studying how that. It is said that out of whose house that he shall come, he shall be of my house. So now you get that little picture that Saudi is also a descendant, a relative of Yeshua's and a descendant of David. And he shall be of the house of David, and he shall be born in the city of David, which is Bethlehem, which is the house that holds the bread. It is said that he shall be spurned by others because he comes from Nazareth, and nothing good comes out of Nazareth. Dolores says, why? What is wrong with Nazareth? Saudi responds, at one time it was fit for nothing, but cutthroats and no accounts, and it is said that no good thing comes from there. In fact, that was asked by the Pharisees. Doesn't the scripture tell us that no good thing comes from Nazareth? Then why do you think he will come from there? And Saudi responds, because the prophecies say. Do your prophecies say when this will happen? Saudi responds, it is said that the time is soon, very soon. Will he be born or will he just appear? He will be born of woman. Is anything known about the parents? This is going to just blow your mind here, friend. Before Christian wrote the Bible or the New Testament, you get a fresh picture tonight of what these people believed about the Messiah that was coming. Check this out. Is anything known about the parents? Saudi responds, it is said that they will know her when they see her. Dolores asks, what about the father? Of course, you know, she's trying to get him to tell her that God impregnated the woman, but listen to the response. Only that he shall be of the tribe of David. That's all. And of course, you get that lineage in the New Testament that, 14 generations? And Mary was of the tribe of David, and Joseph was of the tribe of David. So we can quit trying to figure out how this all worked with Joseph. I think all of you are mature enough to understand intercourse between a man and a woman. If you want to look at it in one context, all pregnancy is immaculate conception. Oh, and I think I had already shared with you that there were 7 other immaculate conceptions, and I'll bet if we went and researched that, we would probably find all of those people were high spiritual people. Is there anything else you can share with us? Saudi responds, it is said that Elias shall have to come before to pave the way. What do you mean? He shall be reborn. He is to pave the way, to let those know who are listening that the Messiah comes. I want to tell you something here, friend. If you're one that's having a problem and struggling with reincarnation, you would have never known this in the stupidity of Christianity because you're blind and you can't see the truth. But I'm going to tell you what he just said is exactly what Yeshua said, and I now no longer have blind eyes to this. John the Baptist was the same spirit that also was Elijah. Do you know that it's a good bet that since that time to now, John the Baptist has come back again as a human, and that spirit would have also been the spirit of Elijah on this earth in another body? He just described for you reincarnation. Elias is coming back, but he's coming in another body. That's reincarnation. Right here in front of you. The Bible was right. It is true. John did come in the spirit of Elijah. We were lied to about how to define that. He shall be reborn. He is to pave the way to let those know who are listening that the Messiah comes. Just so you know, the Messiah is also a reincarnation. So, do you know who he will be reborn as? Saudi says, I don't know. Although he's actually the teacher of both of these guys. What about the Messiah? Is he going to be the rebirth of someone else? Saudi responds, he is Moses or Adam. And I will contend to you today that he's not one or the other, he's both. Yet again, this is totally reincarnation, every bit of this. I would like to tell you today, whether you believe it or don't, isn't going to change the reality that you've been born many people, and you don't have any idea about who those people are. You should really care enough to find out. So he is Moses or Adam. Listen, it is the same. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about Adam, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Moses, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the Messiah, and in between there's several other incarnations between Moses and Yeshua, and now we have John being incarnated from Elijah. The spirit of Elijah literally lived in the body called John the Baptizer. That's who he was. Can you tell me how long the Essenes sect has been here? How long it has been formed? And Saudi responds, it is said that the first ones were not even Jews, but were known as the men of Do any of you remember me taking you back and showing you Gilgamesh and the Ur of Chaldee? That's also the same place where somebody known as Abraham came from, who also has been incarnated multiple times. Who is Melchizedek, who has never been but yet is, who has no father or mother, and yet he comes and Abraham even bows to him and offers a tithe of all that he possesses? Not what he gained. The original law was a tithe of all you possess. It predated Christianity by tens of thousands of years. It's not new, friend. It is said that first the ones were not even Jews, but were known as the men of Ur. It was far in the past. They brought the knowledge of some of the prophecies and the symbol of the cross. The symbol of the cross has nothing to do with Christianity. It was more ancient than Christianity would ever even dream of being. It existed. We have seen this cross that Saudi's about to explain. It was found and believed to be owned by a Knights Templar on a TV show that many of you probably don't watch, but The Mystery of Oak Island. This that he is speaking about from 3,000 years ago was recently, as 6 months ago, was unearthed, the exact same cross form. It predates Christianity by tens of thousands of years. The cross is nothing, friend. It's a symbol. So It was far in the past, they brought the knowledge of some of the prophecies and the symbol of the cross. Well, far in the past, they brought the knowledge of the prophecies. So you mean these prophecies weren't written during the Bible's time? You mean that this is like the flood story, that we can go 20,000 years before there was a Christian and we find out that they all had, there's 8 different versions, but all of them are identical in function of the flood of the earth? I thought that was a Christian thing. So she asked him, is that one of the symbols that the Essenes use? And Saudi responds, yes. She says, what type of cross is it? I have seen many kinds and they're all shaped differently. This is so cool because we here watched this show where they found this cross on Oak Island. It has 2 short arms, very short, the body's this long, a loop for the head, it's at the top, and the head hangs down. That's exactly the cross. I knew it as soon as I heard the words. I knew exactly what that picture was because I watched it on the television. Some of the crosses have all of the arms the same length. We would not call that a cross. A cross has the two horizontal legs, arms are shorter than the vertical leg is. There are crosses that look more like a plus sign. There are also crosses that lay on the side and look like an X. So it has 2 sharp arms, a loop for the head, and it goes down. Some of the crosses have all of the arms the same lengths. Saudi responds, this is not. It sounded rather like an Ankh, the Egyptian symbol of life. What does it symbolically stand for? It is the symbol of salvation. Okay? Now let me help you with this, because if you haven't bled all of your Christianity out, then that takes you and you go, oh, but he's saying that Jesus came to save the world. And unfortunately, if you desire to grow and learn the truth, you have to lose the paradigms that you've been ingrained with for so long. The salvation he gave was his empty body hanging on that cross as a forever picture to us of what we must also do to arise. That's the purpose. I showed you that in the Nag Hammadi text just a week ago. The purpose that Jesus came was to tell us what the truth was, that you must find the God that's inside of you, and you must lose yourself, physical self. You must lose that so that your spirit self can become preeminent. In other words, you must find out who your higher self is, or you will find no salvation. That's what Jesus' message was. Remember, you should be resurrected while you're still alive, not after you're dead. That's quite contrary. So, she asked, what does it symbolically stand for? It is the symbol of salvation. She asked, can you explain that? It is said that it shall be understood when the prophecies have been fulfilled. Salvation to me indicates saving from something. What or who is to be saved? Saudi responds, it is somehow bound up with the fate of the Messiah. Of all of this, I am not sure. So, what was necessary in their time to know is truth that existed before, if I can say it like this, the truth that we now possess. I don't say that it's truth, it's the truth that we believe is the truth that we now possess. So the concept of the ancients were about us. Salvation comes from us. There's a thing Source brought to me the other day when Yeshua was up on the cross. You remember that there was a man that came by and laughed at him. I think he even spit on the ground as a condemnation, and he told him, "Physician, heal yourself." He said, if you're the Son of God, come down off of that cross. Do you know why he didn't? I've had 1,000 preachers quote that to me and stop right there because they don't have any more of an answer probably than most people do. We think it's, oh, well, he's nailed to the cross, he can't get down. I guarantee you, if he was the Son of God in the manner in which Christianity is taught, he wouldn't have had no problems pulling them nails and getting down off that cross. It had nothing to do with that. He didn't need to be the Son of God. He was hanging exactly where he was in obedience to what source sent him here to do. And so when you begin to trace all these things back, you start to see, some of you, I'm sure, have never considered, and I have to admit that I had not either at this level of what Saudi's exposed about these people. It had never occurred to me that John the Baptist was, and the Bible tells you he is. You were just told by Christianity that reincarnation is demonic or some such nonsense. When in reality, all of those ancients knew that they were all reincarnated. If you asked Yeshua, Yeshua would have known probably who he was before and who he would be in the future. Guarantee you. No question about it. So we get an opportunity then to begin to understand these things. And yes, is it difficult when your holy cow gets shot? Yeah, it is. It's very difficult. I don't take it as easily as some of you might think that it's easy for me to put away the things that I've learned, but there's just too much proof that the things that I learned were not the truth. And so if it's hard and you do it, does that really matter? It doesn't matter a bit. See, people not wanting things to be hard are proof of your humanity. Because spirit people have no problems in going through the hard times. None whatsoever. Paul, being a spirit person, said, I've learned to be content in no matter what state I'm in. Whether I have a lot, and I'm like, Paul, you need to come to this world and you need to preach to Christianity. Because they don't know that. If it's not easy, it must be bad. And so you live it's got to be easy or it's not good life. And unfortunately, you're missing most of the things Source wants you to see the most. And that's why people can't find true spirituality. That's why they have no manifestation, because they can't believe it, because they refuse to accept it. And so there's lots of things that's hindering us. None of those things are you being a bad person. You're just simply impeding what could be your journey. Maybe what you really desire inside of you is being halted or slowed down. I'm sure I'm doing it. I don't have any problems in being honest and admitting that. I struggle with myself. Source has to tell me way too many times the same things to get me convinced. Keep walking. There will be those people that will leave. Don't worry about those. And what happens 2 weeks later? I get upset. Something goes on. Source says again, I told you, quit worrying about those people and let them go and follow me to the ones that I want you to go to. But I have to do that often. Why? Because I'm broken and I ain't yet bled out. I keep cutting my wrist weekly. I try to cut them so that the Christian can bleed out of me. Because it's hindering me. It's hindering me from being the spirit force I was created to be on this earth. It won't hinder me forever, I promise you that. And maybe it will you. Maybe you will allow it to. What a travesty if you do. What a travesty. In fact, I don't know that there's any greater travesty than that someone would miss what creative source made for us and intended for us to be, and man is stolen from us. And instead of making the choice to do what you have to do, you make the choice, it's too hard and I don't want to do anything. That's why Christians love the Christian Jesus, because you have to do nothing. Wow. And in reality, I don't have to do anything except what Source desires me to do. All of those things you're trying to do are of no avail. Maybe you've recognized this about yourself. Maybe you've recognized that the harder you try to be good, the less good you are. Maybe you've recognized that every time you say you're not going to steal, something comes up and you reach your hand out and steal it. Every time you say you're not going to lie anymore, a situation opens up and you lie again. Has anybody besides me noticed those things? Those are the things Paul was talking about. And he actually does tell us the resolve for that. There's only one way, but it only happens through the Spirit. And if your spirit isn't pure, you can do bad things as a human and your spirit not want to do them. Eventually you will stop. That's the change that wanting to brings into your life. Your flesh doesn't want to. It loves it. It loves getting something for nothing. It loves taking things from others. Yada, 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 yada. Whatever you choose to do. And there's thousands of those things we all get encumbrance with. So the only way we really have a chance to change is when we begin to change spiritually. And as we, if you might, introduce ourselves to the spirit realm and open ourselves to the spirit realm, we then are capable of changing things we could have never changed by ourselves. It's a beautiful story of victory and winning and of abundance, and even if you have nothing, you're in abundance. It's so amazing. This is all over history. And so I hope you guys have been blessed. I know there's some things that are pretty massively overwhelming for some of you. Maybe it's too difficult. You know, maybe you're still struggling with your Christianity. The only thing I can offer you is that keep struggling. You have no hope of chance if you quit. And I hope all of you will not quit. So shalom and peace to each and every one of you. I hope that you will think about these things. If I haven't done anything else but jogged your mind to think, then my night has been successful. So peace to each and every one of you. I hope you find the truth, and I hope that you allow it to make you free. If you do, you'll never believe all that Source has in store for you. Namaste.